right, you guys, I have here Kamran Demetrius. Hello, Kamran.
Hey, Nikki.
All right, so we
Awesome.
met in Colombia, and I actually already we talked about our little unicorn thing already. We met back in almost a year ago now. You know that?
Mm, almost a year. Yeah, it feels like that. Oh, it really
No,
doesn't
it
feel
was.
like
I
that,
think,
but it
yeah,
is.
I think we were there in the beginning of March, so of
Or I think it
2020,
might have. I think it might have been like
maybe
it's
February.
about to be March on Monday, so I think it's like that same like week.
I
You know what
know.
I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, that's really cool. So, okay, so tell us about, okay, what I really think
yeah.
I think Demetrius is basically a wizard. Okay? Like he has his own natural way of looking like okay, for example, Demetrius, tell us about the whole thing you came up with about how the way in which
Uh,
you talk, the direction in which you talk to a person determines these things. Like how you're like,
okay. So this is gonna be fun because I like to have conversations. Of course, Nikki, we have a great conversation, and I'm pretty free flowing with my ideas. So it's just gonna be a lot of just coming out. So what I feel like is we all have our own charts. We all have our own astrological charts. We got sun sign, we got moon sign, we got our rising sign. So everybody's rising sign and their sun sign and their moon sign is, different as far as like you don't necessarily know what the next person's sun sign and moon sign is. However, there are ways to determine and like kind of give like clues to that. But when people are speaking, it's typically the first word out of their mouth is an emotional response of their sun sign. The second word is the moon sign, and then the third word is the rising sign or the ascendant sign. So, like, take for instance,
take for instance. Yeah.
I don't want to, yeah, like just like that. So, take would be my sun sign. My sun sign is Sagittarius or Scorpio Sagittarius. My moon sign is four, like the emotion of the moon, four, and then the rising sign instance, like the picture, which is also Sagittarius. So the main thing I'm trying to convey to you is instance of the idea that I'm
Right.
conveying to you right now.
So I have this written down like you told me like a while ago, and I wrote it down because I thought it was so cool. But yeah, the
Wow.
sun sign is your initial, it's your initial response to something, like how you really feel about it. Maybe there two is your emotion about it, and your third word that you say to any sentence or statement is going to be your intentions.
Yeah, because that's your ascendant. Like, what are you coming into? Because that's your, yeah. Uh,
Yeah. So yes, cause yeah, okay. Um, so
cool.
I guess it takes you a while to get kind of fluent at this when you're talking with somebody, but it's
So
interesting
I
because
guess I
yes, so
guess
yes.
your intention. Okay, we can just pull that out anytime and just be like, yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, because
So
it
it makes
it
it to where people you're kind of getting a good read on what they really are trying to say, but they're not saying it.
100%, because a lot of times people will just be speaking. I mean, most people were emotional, so that's like we're just really speaking from our emotions, our moon sign. But there's like that layer, and that there's that layer of the sun sign, which is like, okay, this is like the daytime. You probably have a little bit more energy, so you can put on a mask and not like and mask your emotions, like whatever society says you have to be. But if you pay attention to it, people are always giving you hints as to how they really feel, not necessarily, well, they're always giving you hints as to how they really feel, but they're not necessarily like,
Conscious of it.
like 3 hours you're gonna come out and say, this is how I feel, or this is how I feel about myself, this is what my exact emotions are. It's more of, I'm gonna speak, and I'm gonna speak in a manner that's going to convey how I feel, but it's just not gonna be direct. So when you're looking at like your chart, you can tell like other type of people. Like when you compare your chart to another person's chart, you can be like, okay, like this person's a Libra moon, so that means they're probably more balanced if you speak to them, they're probably going to say something that balances or like counterbalances like your emotion. Whereas somebody who's like my moon is like Aries, pretty much like I'm on a pretty assertive personality. Just like I'll speak and just say like direct things directly. And just to get continue on to this topic, I've just been really having this like this idea, or organic idea that like what is our chart? Maybe I don't know. Like we're doing this, but I don't know if other people have like had these type of conversations.
Right,
But
because this is actually just based on your intuition, right? Like this is not
yeah,
something that you read in a book. This is just how you've observed reality to be. And I guess you're particularly interested in, like for me, I
yeah.
didn't even know what a sun sign or a moon sign or a rising sign was until a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So which basically is all where the planets were aligned. It's astrology, but that it's
Yeah.
a little bit more deeper astrology. And then a lot of people just know their sun sign, which is the month you were born in. So this is like the moon is like where the moon, what constellation it was positioned in when you like the at the time you came out, and the rising as well. Like I don't know what that is, but
What is your chart? Like, okay, because it's like, a lot of times you just pull it up and just be like, it's just a bunch of words. And they say like, oh, planets and stuff. And it's just like, what is this, that, what does this even mean? But I had this like idea, like this idea came into my awareness when I was hanging out with my friend. And so then we were talking about like each other's charts because he had pulled his chart out and I was looking at it. I was like, oh, okay. So like you got like some Virgo in your chart, you got Aquarius in your chart. And then it really hit me. I was like, a lot of like the other planets that are like deeper into the chart are the same because me and him are similar in age. Like I'm a little bit older than him, but I really had the like idea that like, okay, so each planet that is on the chart means that like that's where it was when you were born. So that's why they call your birth chart. But when you really think about the sun, the moon, the stars, and the planets themselves, all of these things are heavenly bodies that have, just like you're a body that gives off energy. You're a heavenly body. You have your own gravity. You have, just like a planet, like just like the moon has gravity, or just like Jupiter has gravity, or just like the sun has gravity. That's why things rotate around it, because things rotate around things with gravity. It's a circular wave. It's a cycle. So when like Jupiter has gravity, that means that Jupiter is naturally exerting gravity at its rate or whatever. So basically, that means Jupiter is giving off a wave function that flows out into space to where it's literally like, okay, like boom, boom, boom. Like it's
so
like
it's going to
flowing.
influence you basically. Your entry point into this gravity is going to be influenced by the conditions in which you came in.
Yo, I like how you explained that. Whoa, that's so enlightening. Exactly, because when two planets or when two waves connect, there's an interference. Like that's what interference is. There's a wave on two-way function. So when it's like, okay, this planet and this planet, their wave functions connect and interfere with each other, that creates interference. So when we get to planet Earth, all of these planets wave functions have been interfering, and then when you look at your chart, that is basically saying that at this particular moment in time, this point in space, it's where all of these wave functions interfered, and that is the interference of you coming into existence, into this reality, which is why the planets have an influence, because that is where the wave function basically connects and creates like the wave, like the body of energy that's around us as people is held in place by our own gravity, which is created through interference from all the other planets interconnecting with each other. So that's what our birth chart is. Like this is literally saying that this is not only this is where you were born in space, but this is where you were born in time and space at the intersection of the planet's gravity. Each planet's own gravity pull. So that's why it's like, oh, like if you're a lot of people who are in a specific age group, Like their Jupiter will all pretty much be in the same sign, or their Pluto will all be in the same sign because those planets are further out into the universe and they move slower. So when that like degrees of radiance basically come, like that wave basically gets to Earth, like that's like years and years of people. And so when we look at like the chart like that, we can really see like, okay, not only does this have an effect at the moment that I was born, but it always has an effect, especially with the sun and the moon like rotating and transiting in the earth. So what we can do, or what I've been able to do, or what I feel like I've been able to do with that is a lot of things like positioning. So like when I feel like I'm facing north, like I'm facing north, that means I'm heading towards my north node. Maybe not like physically, because I mean, to be honest, like physical transportation does not matter. We live in the age of Aquarius, it's air signs. It's all about what are you saying, like what kind of conversations are you having that are moving you closer to your goals. But
So
when you're
you're
facing
talking
north,
about like when
it
you're
orients your mind.
you're talking about like when you're in a physical conversation with somebody. Like do you mean like when you're in person with them, or do you actually mean like does this apply to if you were like on the phone, or like right now when we're on like Zoom? Is like, because right now
So
technically
that's
I'm
like it does apply, but it has layers to it, just like anything else. Because like when you're in person, you're in person. Like what I'm saying, like you can influence, like not you can influence people, but like they can influence you. There's no barriers of like anything. But like when it comes to like the phones and technology, that's like Mercury. Okay, like Mercury is communication. All technology is a form of communication, and so it is a barrier. So like sometimes like when like Mercury is in retrograde, there's like communication retrograde. So you can see that particular like happen. Like okay, well like when you forget your electronics, or when like you forget them, they start working, or like we kind of had like a technical difficulty, and then now we're like trying to talk to each other at the same time. But if we were in person, that would have never happened. I mean, there's no way it could have, what I'm saying? But
right,
so
but also it's like let's say you had figured out that you really get more power if you're talking to somebody when you're facing north, then
yeah.
it would be kind of weird if you were like, excuse me, like just come with me here, like, just 1 second, let's switch places here, let's talk this
Yeah.
way.
This is true. Well, but it would be weird, but you gotta just be like slick with it, because like if you're facing north, you gotta like you're heading towards your north node. But if you're facing south, you're heading towards your south node, which is kind of away from where like you're really headed to in life. So like right now, like you're facing north. Well, from my point of view, you're facing north because I like
You're
set up my
facing
office.
east for me right now. This is my
Okay,
north.
I'm facing east. Okay, so east is this way. So that's the opposite of the rising sign, right? So like the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So if you face the west, that's your rising sign because you're rising into that ascendant aspect of your life. So like it for me, they're pretty much the same because they're both Sagittarius. But I like to face north because well, my sun sign and my rising sign. But I like to face north because that's me moving away from my ascendant, my not my ascendant, but like my north node is Libra. So it's just like me being able to move towards like people working in conjunction, and I I feel like the ideas I have
So is this different for
are
people though? Like,
yeah, everyone.
so like, okay, I'm like a Gemini is my sun sign, and then my moon sign is Virgo, and then my rising is Pisces. So I would be, um, like, so I don't know, would it be kind of like depending on what element of myself I want to bring out would be how I should be positioning myself, or in general,
Yeah, that's it.
does everybody need to be kind of focused toward?
Yeah, yeah. You said it. You said it. Like you said it. It is what element of yourself, because it's like think about it like this, like astrology, right? So we are astrological beings. We are moving through space. So at the end of the day, all of life is a relationship. It's a relationship with yourself. Yeah, other people are there, but at the beginning and at the end, it's yourself. So you're piloting your ship. So, like you said, like if you want to have a different aspect of yourself and you know your chart, Because if you've ever looked at your chart, it's 360 degrees. If you want to be like, well, on my chart, if I just face this direction, it'll make you think more in those type of, like you said,
Aspects.
Libra aspects. You'll just start having ideas, like you have ideas that just come out like that are like more Libra aspected or more Pisces aspected, depending on how you are standing in a conversation.
What's interesting is that I used to think all this was woo-woo because I was like, it's just arbitrary, like when you were born or all the like whatever. But then I used to own an art gallery, and I was being a director of a gallery for a little bit in New York City. Yeah. And one of our artists that we represented was before I could even get hired as the director at this place, she was a Rockefeller. And she was like a great grandchild of Rockefeller. And she would not work with us until I had to go get my birth certificate and figure out my birth time. I had to give her my entire birth chart, and she had to measure things up before she would even agree to allow the guy who owned the gallery to hire me. That's how crazy insane some of the elite people believe in astrology.
It's real because like you say that, like, okay, like this person is probably like on some cuckoo shit, but like it is 100% real because you might have an aspect in your chart that creates a block. And if you have a block with her, I mean, she already knows, because she already know, like, that's why they're like billionaires or whatever.
Right.
Like they have power because they can like, okay, I know what direction I'm moving, but I also know that other people around me are just like stars in the space, just like asteroids. So if you're going to create a block for me, I gotta like, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get to my goal, my dreams as fast as possible. You don't want to hire people who have like blocks. Like for instance, I was realizing this on the train because I've been taking the train recently because I have to for this. Well, not I have to, but for this moment in time, like transportation is a hindrance for me because I have a lot of Sagittarius, and transportation is a form of communication. And so South Node is in Sagittarius, so like all kinds of stuff. Like I haven't had a car for a year, and since the South Node has been in Sagittarius, and it's just been real crazy with all that kind of stuff. But hey, technology, Nikki, you're a Gemini. We're having this conversation. North Node is in Gemini. I'm headed your way. Like we're here. But to get to my point, like I was noticing because I was talking to the people on the train. I was like, yeah, like, okay, what's going on? Because like I got a little business. I'll sell stuff to people on the train, and then I'll just connect with them on Instagram. And so like a lot of the people who were like I was connecting with on Instagram, some of them had like their sun sign, their rising sign, and their ascendant sign in their bio on Instagram. I was like, oh, like it's like interesting. But I was noticing that like everybody who was on the train with me, they had the same moon sign as me in their bio. So I was like, wait a minute. Like, I mean, it can't be a coincidence that like they all have Aries moon and they're all in the train. Like the train it's communicating us to a different destination, wherever we're going. And we felt like we needed to ride the train today. So then we all decided somehow that like, oh, let's go get on the train at this moment in time. And now we're in a room. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when I say we're in a room, like the people you're in a room with are there because emotionally they felt like they needed to be there. But then like when you start looking deeper at it, it's like we have the same emotions. Like we're probably feeling the same emotions, which is why we're here. So the people around you, more likely than not, that's why like you probably have more in common with the people around you, because we're all emotional creatures, and our moon sign is really where our emotions are. Like that's the water. You know what I'm saying? Like the moon has gravity and it affects the water. We're water beings, made up of water. So it's like that moon is pulling us and pushing us other different places. So like if you ever like look, it'd be very, well, maybe not audacious, but it probably would be like very interesting to see, like you just go into a room and just be like, what's your moon sign? What's your moon? Like most people don't know, But they're like, what's your moon sign? What's your moon sign? And you
Which is
find out
easy.
that
You can
shit.
just look it up online, like put in your birthday, and there's a bunch of free readers that'll tell you your moon or your rising.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So there's a solution, and you'll probably find out that they probably have the same moon sign as you because like their emotions are saying, I need to be in this particular place. And so for me, and for the Rockefellers, or I don't know anybody else, anytime you're out and about, just like walking around, you can kind of navigate this because you can say like, oh, like these people around me at this particular instance or really this particular time, depending on my chart, because you know in our chart we got houses like the world at large through your chart by looking at your houses, because your houses are also like numbered 1 through 12. And then if you think about it, like how many zodiac signs are there? There are 12 zodiac signs. There are 12 hours in a day. There are 12 months. There are 12 houses. There are 12. What else is there? Yeah. I feel like 12 is pretty popular. Yeah. Yeah. So what it is each like house has a number. Oh, that was the other thing. It's 12 hours in a day. 12 hours in the day and then 12 hours at night. So when like let's say your house is in like the fourth house, or let's say you have a planet with a position in the fourth house, you probably notice around 4 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the evening that aspect of the personality coming out. And so this can be while you're awake or this can be while you're dreaming. You're either like, you know, people like, oh, I'm insomniac or whatever, but like sometimes people will wake up. I mean, this happens for me. I'll wake up usually at like around the same time every night, around like 4 or something, because like that's the house that like a lot of my chart is in, or some of my chart Saturn is in. And so what it'll do is it's just saying that like, okay, at this hour, this is pretty much when this position is the strongest. So what you can do is the way you navigate that is you just look at the time and you be like, okay, like it's 10:35 right now. Is there anything that I remember about my chart that says like this happens around this time, or like this aspect of my chart is like has a house in here? Because you know a lot of times you'll get like those conversations, or people will call you up, or like you ever notice like when like four people call you at the exact same time, it's because like they all have things in their chart which align with yours. So it's kind of like I'm like an asteroid shower, like it all just kind of hits at once. Rains, it pours. Yeah, when it rains it pours. And good. Well, I was gonna say, do you have a thing where do you have a source that you sort of believe more, or do you sort of look into your own intuition as to like what aspects belong to what chart? Because for me, I don't even know. Like maybe this is the Gemini in me, or I don't know what. But I have no memory for other people's. I have no idea what an Aries is. I mean, I know I know when it is, but I'm saying I have no idea what the aspects are that are. Like there are certain people who know something about every single sign. I am like, I know nothing about your sign unless it's my sign. So what I do is I don't know, like I know there's things that like people write about these type of people or whatever, but I just have like friends who have these like they're Capricorns. So I know like 3 Capricorn people, and so I'm like I'll just like check in regularly with them like once a week or maybe more than once a week, and I'm like, what are you doing this week? Or what do you like to do? What are you typically thinking about doing? How do you do things? How are you able to like make this opportunity happen for you? Or what do you have planned? And it's kind of the same like they all live their own individual lives, but it's like I think you would have been an astrologer like in the olden days, like in past lives you were an astrologer. I think like I think your own too. I like that because it's I feel like it's growing in me, like just like psychic abilities as well, just like with like dreams and premonitions and stuff like that. And but yeah, I feel like that because I'm like, man, like now I can kind of see like, okay, like the moon is in Virgo. Oh damn, the moon is in Virgo, and well bless it, the moon is in Virgo, and I think my what is that one where it's like my midheaven? think my midheaven is in Virgo. Hold on. I just have all these things written down just in case.
I don't even know what a midheaven is.
I don't know. It just seems like heaven on earth to me. But I don't know, because I feel like okay, like midheaven. Okay, like you got heaven up here or wherever it's supposed to be, and you got hell down here or wherever that's supposed to be. But then you got the middle limbo, earth. Like earth is the middle of heaven, as far as I can like posture or whatever. But yeah, so you know what? I'm listening to you. You're probably right. It's full moon in Virgo tonight. My midheaven is in Virgo, and I probably would have been an astrologer. I'm just like, this shit kind of, I mean, like it kind of makes sense. Like I see how I love people. I believe in God, and I see how people are just like people are animals still at the end of the day. Like, like we're creatures, we're sentient. We have spaceships and all of that stuff, but we still like are animals. Like we have like organs and bodies and like I was talking to my friend about this and I was like people get up every day and they're like I want to make some money, I want to go do this, and it's like imagine what the birds are thinking, like, oh, these people or like these creatures like come out of these like box shaped things and they're always trying to get these like square things to go to get more squares to go give to somebody else for more squares, and they're like what are they doing with these squares, like these square pieces of paper, and they try to like trade these squares for food when they could just go get food. But like why are they like they're getting squares to like spend all this time go getting more squares, and it's just like from a bird's point of view
they're crazy.
yeah, they're crazy. Like, but we're like
it's funny because like me and my niece, like she's obsessed with wolves, and she has a bunch of those little like plastic wolves, and she's like, will you play wolves with me? So the other day I was like, got down and I was like, we're gonna be werehumans. They're not wolves, they're werehumans. And she's like, what's that? And I was like, it's where they turn into a human on the full moon, and then they're the wolf the rest of the time or whatever. Nice. And then so we had the wolf pack gathered, and she was one of the wolves. She was like warning him. She's like, now listen, there's these tiny little boxes that humans look into to waste their time.
Swear.
So they were warning the werehumans, when you become a human, don't get addicted to the tiny little black box.
Exactly. It's like, what is this? But like that is 100% of what I'm talking about. Like, it's like, what is it? Like from anybody else's point of view, it doesn't make any sense. But I mean, for us,
because the other thing is like, well, I think what humans, in my mind's eye, and I include myself in this because I'm human. I think that we always forget our mortality and that we're going to die, and so we sometimes like put way more importance on this physical stuff around us than we really need to, because in the end you cannot take it with you. I mean, be comfortable, have a good time while you're here, but I mean, if you're in the video game obsessed with collecting all the apples when all you needed was 30 apples, you didn't need to get all 99 of the apples in the level, you're kind of wasting some time here, man.
100%.
Go on, let's go see other levels, do other stuff, man. Stop obsessing about the apples or the coins or whatever it is in the collection of the thing.
It's like I guess it's like a 4-dimensional idea, in the sense of like ideas definitely they come into people, like, you know what I'm saying, like nobody owns an idea, but we talk about ideas, we have conversations, we go to war over ideas, and like things in reality, especially things created by people, 9 times out of 10 they're like square and they're 4D, like they're like yeah, it's like 3-dimensional or whatever, like we live in 3D, but every physical thing conveys an idea as well. So that's like, okay, we got 4 corners, we got 4 walls, we got 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. We got 4-dimensional objects in the sense of like they're an idea and it's like a physical object. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't just like walk up to like or like this pen and be like, on the computer screen or whatever, it just seems like
really like 2D. But in like my reality, it is 3 dimensional, but it also has a fourth dimension of like what is this? Like what am I even holding? In the sense of like that idea lives somewhere, not physical, but it lives like but everyone knows it. So I'm saying like that's like in a sense
Right.
that's
It
kind
has
of
an
how
identity, you know.
and in a sense that's kind of I don't know, I'm trying to bring this back to astrology to where it's like it's all just ideas, like our body is an idea and we're really just emotions floating around in space, quote unquote, on like planet Earth. Like you know, like you zoom out way back. Like let's say you were standing on Pluto looking at Earth, like all you're seeing is just like movement. Maybe some people, you know, they don't move that much of these like creatures, and depending on like how they move or where they move is kind of just like the planet's positioning. So like a lot of times like the location and like this is like I think like astrocartography or something like that. Like a lot of times like the way people move has a lot to do with like what else is in their chart, like how fast people walk. Like a lot of times like people will be like, "Oh, you're not walking fast," or "You walk slow," or "I'm a fast walker." But like everyone has like their own like base speed
Rhythm.
rhythm. Okay, so I like that word. Rhythm is another way for saying motion or cycle or again gravity. It's just like a wave function, rhythm. So like a lot of times like that is also based off like our animal nature in what's in our chart. So like in our animal nature, that's Mars. So a lot of times like people's like whatever your Mars is can pretty much like you can like I said like navigating this stuff like depending on how fast somebody's walking, you can pretty much determine like they might have like an Aries Mars sign because they like walk very fast. Or if they're like slow, you could be like, huh, they probably have an Earth sign Mars because they like to drag their feet. Or if they like, you ever notice like those people who are like walking, like, and they're like,
Like they're bouncing.
yeah, you're like, I wonder, like, I haven't checked this because I don't walk like this, but like, do they have air signs in their Mars that is like, you know, they just feel the need to like they just not bound by gravity when they're walking, and you can just kind of like navigate that because like you want to always be like in like places where like you like the word that came to mind is like compatible. And so like when you're like that example you gave about the Rockefeller person not wanting to hire somebody who was whatever was in their chart, like she probably has like her own particular like everybody has their own gravity. And in human terms that's called influence or that's called, you know, your connections, your network, whatever. And so she's like, man, this person who's in my network, I'll probably try to communicate with them. And everyone's had this experience to where it's like no matter how hard you try to like your best to just get this idea across to this person, like it just doesn't work. Like it just like you can't either like keep continually missing the meeting you're supposed to have, or they just keep like you try to text them and it just comes out wrong, and it's just like there's a block there, like whatever, like, and it's not like personal. It's not like they don't like you or whatever, or you're not trying to do your best. It's like whatever, like they're like stuck in your gravity right now, and they can't get out because you can't communicate like the exit for them to like basically complete their mission in your life to then exit out of your life, out of your gravity, and then move on with their life. And so it's just like hiring those people, being around those people, they slow you down. Like they literally just they weigh you down. Like literally, like they like you're getting hit by an asteroid. Like you got more stuff in your gravity, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's just like these people are to be avoided because like their chart is going to conflict with your chart. Because like at the end of the day, or really at the beginning of the day, it's kind of like 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 light and black holes. Like when light hits a black hole, it just gets like stretched out and then like just gets absorbed into it. So when like you're in interference, And when you're an interference, you're a spiritual being. You have all of this energy in your body, and you like come into contact with people who are just like they're resonating not at your level, but at like a lower or a slower vibration than you. Then it's just like, dang, like I'm gonna be like stuck kind of with them. Like, and in that sense, like you can feel this with people where it's like, I thought this guy was out of my life. Like, why are you back? What's going on? Like, and then those type of things, like they talk about like, oh, breaking cycles. Like that's for you or for me to be like, whatever I'm communicating, however I'm communicating, I have to find a way to communicate better or differently to break out of this cycle. And the only way to do that, the only way that I found so far to do that, is you got to get advice from people who are different from you, but who you can trust, like their instincts, because like their animal instincts are gonna basically like it's like rock paper scissors. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're a rock and this person is is paper, you're gonna lose every time.
On a paper, yeah.
Yeah, but if you go and be like, hey,
You talk to a scissor.
you like scissors, what would you say to this? They're gonna say something completely different. That's gonna be like, whoa, that's a cheat code. Like they basically just use scissors. Like I can now use scissors on this piece of paper and get to like my job, and I'm still rock. But like you got people on your team who are like scissors. You know, okay, like if they were like not necessarily if they were in this situation, what would they say? But it's like sometimes it's like okay, you hand them the phone and be like, you answer this, and they were like they'll say whatever they say, and it's just like perfect. But the thing is, like those situations, like, and for me, I know this has come up because I'm in real estate. That's like it's a passion of mine. I connect like real estate specifically with Capricorn. So my friend who's also in real estate, his sun sign is Capricorn. And so like when I was having like issues communicating with people setting up appointments because I was like, hey, like why are you like not showing up to the appointment or whatever, he would just be like, well, what you should say is, you must think you're really important or you must think you're popular. And I'm like, huh, I would have never said that. But that got the emotional response that I needed to move forward to the next part of moving the ball down the court in like this particular field of my passion, which he also shares in his sun sign. So I was just like, huh. Like whenever I'm trying to pursue pursuits, however that sounds, in my particular field of endeavor, I can look at my chart and be like, okay, so like real estate is like Capricorn. But like stuff that has to do with like communications, that's like Sagittarius. For me, that's like a lot of Sagittarius. But if it's like other stuff like with my emotions, let me go ahead, like that's Aries. So like let me go find people who are air signs in their emotions and get the opposite opinions advice on how to proceed in a lot of issues that come up in my life. And didn't you say your sun or your moon is Libra?
No,
It's Virgo.
my moon is Virgo. Yeah.
It's Virgo.
And my rising is Pisces.
Pisces. Yeah. See, I'm well saying Virgo. It's a full
Virgo,
moon.
yeah. But I don't know anything about Pisces or Virgo people. Nothing. I just know that. I should probably look that up. But yeah.
It's
You know what's
Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say another thing that me and you share in common and the thing that we bonded over at the very first time we saw each other was we're both like rock hounds. We're both really into crystals and minerals and stuff like that. And I was actually, I don't know if it was, I wish I could remember the source of this right now, but I read this book one time that was talking about how every crystal is formed, also has a birthday, right? It also has a time when it was formed, and it's where the planetary frequencies were aligned when it was formed, to where some things are for you and some things aren't for you. And you can find even the gemstones that will attract you or won't attract you or whatever. Rock, like for me, I get called to certain rocks or certain gems, or like it's like a be to a light. Like I just said, like I get magnetized by certain things. But it's not like, yes, there will be a thing where like I might particularly really like shungite, or I might really like molderbite or something like that. But that was all formed at one time. But for instance, every crystal, quartz crystal or something like that, is like one of the most abundant things on the planet. So they weren't all formed at the exact same second. So it's not, there is a thing where you won't necessarily be aligned with every single quartz crystal I ever see. You know, so what's your thoughts on that?
That's like time, right? So like this whole time thing, as far as us being human beings, that's a concept, because of course, like for us it's a concept. I'm sure that for a crystal,
yeah, that's true.
For like a different being, and a crystal, like okay, so like planet Earth is living. It creates living beings like us. So who's to say the quartz crystals aren't living? For them at a specific point in time, it's like we could just be there. Like, okay, so like humans have like patterns, like we'll go back, we'll go forth, we'll go back, we'll go forth. And they're solid. Like rocks are not, like, they do move, but it's like it's at a lower vibration. So for us to like come in contact with them, it probably happens. And it probably happens to where like all of these future realities that could happen probably do happen. And in those future realities, or those different realities, we do come in contact with those specific quartz crystals or those particular minerals, because they exist for all of them, because like that's the foundation that like all living beings are built on top of. So I think, yeah, definitely, like it's what we're drawn to, and then like what we just have the chance at that chance moment in time to acquire, or to really just like whatever like little piece fell off the main bigger piece of that particular body of minerals, the earth. We can just keep it in our our possessions. Like our possessions are like stuff that's like in our gravity.
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, for sure.
It's just really weird how there's certain things where I find that interesting that you gravitate towards signs.
Well, you said the magic word. You gravitate. You definitely do. You definitely do, because it is like, that's what I'm saying. Like you can't even get into the certain. Like, you can't even get in the rooms with these people because they're just on a different wavelength. They're just on a different like trajectory in life. It's just, it makes sense. Like the people you choose, but it's just like, don't choose people who are like on the surface, of course, but like when you get like them more, you get into them more. It's just like, oh yeah, like certain things you just can't ask of certain people because they literally do not have it in. They don't have the capabilities of like. I mean, and we could like look. We could say like whatever, like the chart is the reason, and it more than likely is like that's their personality. Like that's like them as a person in a physical reality, personality. So you could really just be like, I'm not gonna ask these type of things of these people, like, or just like, or even notice like you, like when I called you yesterday, like, oh, like I made a note to call you 2 days from now, and I was like, I just called you. I didn't even know that.
Right.
I didn't even know we were gonna do this call, but I just called you after you already wrote it down on paper that
I was supposed to, yeah, I wrote it down on paper. I was like, oh, I need to do an interview with Demetrius. I'm gonna call him. And yeah.
and
Yeah,
just
okay.
like boom.
I mean, so like that's one of the things that I find what I find interesting about all this stuff is that it may not be, I mean, it's not an exact replica for everybody. Everybody has their nuances, but these are ways in which you can kind of decode the matrix in a way.
100%. It is, and I'm really really working on just it is like that, because like things will just happen for me, and it's like they can't, all of this can't just happen at one time. Like there's no like correlation. And I'll be real, like you were saying, like, oh, let's move this, like you just had something come up and you're like, let's move this conversation to like a day from now or into the future.
And I was like, no, like, because the emotions we're gonna have are gonna just be different. Like, we're just gonna be emotionally feeling different things. And so, like, that's why I was saying, like men, like, not like I was saying, but like men and women both. I mean, of course, women have periods, but men also have period. Like, everybody has a period because it's just based off the moon. Like, the moon is just going through these phases. Everyone on the planet is going through these phases. That's why they're like, oh yeah, like it's a full moon tonight, so be careful, because people are just like in more of like their emotional nature, like this, the moon is closer, or it's just like the people, like, birds of a feather flock together.